officers, directors, members, and guests. Thank you for inviting me. First of all, when I come to Freeport, it's like coming home, because I will confess to my age, I first came to Freeport in 1969 with CIBC, so I know Freeport well. I was here in 74, and then I used to come here when I was the Director of Human Resources for City Markets, so although that was a long, painful experience. Never nice to watch a company go down like that. But I am here to speak on the current state of a review of the Minimum Wage Act, which is occurring, but thought I would give you some background on the recent passing in the House of the National Tripartite Council Act before entering that discussion. And it's always a mouthful, the tripartite, and there's other terms for it. But the bill was introduced at the insistence of both the employers, represented by the Chamber of Commerce in Nassau, and the employee representatives, the National Congress of Trade Unions and the Trade Union Congress, as we wanted a more formal and organized venue to discuss issues of national importance, and on a regular and organized basis, not whenever somebody wanted to trot us out and say, look, we've been having discussions. So we got together on that. We spent a lot of time putting that act together, and we then had the International Labour Organization review the act for us, and they suggested a number of changes. So the bill has been passed, and we do believe that we've got it right. And it will, now of course, we will wait passage in the Senate and wait for the Governor General to put her hook on it, and then we will form the Tripartite Council. And just for some background on it, the way it's going to work, there'll be 3 members from the employers, so we will nominate 3 members. There will be 3 members from the employees, which will be the unions, and then there'll be 3 members from government, which will be from the Department of Labor and the Attorney General's office. And those 9, with at least 1 alternate for each, will meet on a regular basis once the act is passed, and we will be able to have good discussions, and we will have the same people at the table every time. What used to happen before, if we had discussions, you never knew who was going to show up. And then, of course, they'd want to be briefed on what happened in the meeting before, and you go, this just isn't working. So hopefully with this new act, it will work. We already know that there are a number of issues that are going to be put forward for discussion. And we're going to name a few of them, but I'm not going to be able to address them. We will be coming to businesses and, of course, the other chambers, and obviously you go to your businesses with some of these issues, and we can get feedback so that we can then take that back to the Tripartite Council. But some of the issues that have been raised already is increased redundancy payments, time off between shifts, definitions of what a week and a day are. That's a tough one. You'd be surprised what some people think a week and a day is. Paid meals, 12 hours rest between shifts, 2 full days off, and who knows what else we're going to get thrown at us. So we will be discussing them. We, of course, will represent you. And we will be calling on you for input on those as they get introduced. And we would really appreciate your feedback. I mean, that's what we're at the table for. We're there to represent you, and we really need your help. The minimum wage. It's a topic dear to everybody's heart. During a meeting of what we call the informal National Tripartite Council, since there wasn't an official one, in November of last year, the subject of the minimum wage was discussed. And the Tripartite Council was presented with a recommended increase in the minimum wage, which actually came from the Department of Statistics, who had taken the $150 that was legislated in 2002. It hasn't changed in 13 years. And they looked at the cost of living for each year since 2002, and they come up with that the $150 what it would buy in 2002 would buy in 2014, and that was $204. So this is the amount of the minimum wage that we're discussing, and it's going to be resolved in the next probably 2 to 3 weeks in the subsequent meetings, and then we'll see what the minister introduces to the House. I don't have any control over the minister, and nobody does, but he is supposed to listen to our recommendations and the recommendations that are coming from the council, and I think we're going to be able to come to some reasonable agreement. But what we have done is we have been very, if you want, vocal at this table, and we've put position papers before this after getting feedback from our members that, you know, when you're looking at a minimum wage, you've got to be very, very careful, because you've got to be considered in conjunction with the various costs of doing business, including but not limited to the introduction of VAT, and of course, as you're seeing in the papers, just even yesterday, there's a lot of noise being made about the proposed national health insurance and how much that's going to cost us, and we have absolutely no idea today how much it's going to cost, because they haven't even decided on how much benefits they're going to introduce at the very start. And we are also in discussions on the national health insurance ourselves. We've been asked for our input. We have been very vocal in cautioning that a significant hike in the minimum wage from its current level could lead to impediments to the survival of many small and medium-sized businesses in the Bahamas, and could potentially impact on employee retention in these businesses, which could lead to more unemployment, as employers will not be able to sustain the level of employees that they currently have. Further, we have said that consideration must be given to the impact a significant increase in the minimum wage would have on the competitiveness of the Bahamas, as regionally our cost of labor is already seen as being exorbitant in relation to current levels of productivity and output. Given the challenges faced currently with the ease of doing business in the Bahamas, many companies wishing to do business in the Bahamas may choose not to do so and may take their valuable business to other competing jurisdictions because of the cost of doing business in the Bahamas. And we've seen a lot of that in the banking and trust fields. Also, consideration must be given to the relatively high cost of living in the Bahamas, where the rate of inflation has consistently outperformed the increase in earnings, and an increase in the minimum wage is not necessarily the ideal solution, and careful thought must be given to finding ways to reduce the cost of living. The recent tax reform initiatives, including the introduction of VAT, will have considerable impacts on the cost of living for consumers, particularly in the initial periods of implementation, because we know that while they were put in VAT, they had promised a number of reductions in customs duties, but we haven't seen those yet. And integral components in reducing the cost of living include lowering the cost of energy, which is paramount on everybody's mind, especially here and in Nassau, including electricity and fuel, reducing the custom tariffs on certain imported goods, and reassessing the business license fees to businesses. As you know, those are done on a percentage of sales and not on how much you're earning. So if you're not earning a lot of money and you got to pay a big percentage on your sales, I guess you're out of business. Such solutions can also serve as incentives for employers to increase wages to their employees, provided such increases are met with improved productivity. While there is general support for an increase in minimum wage to $204 per week, it is the position of the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce and Employers Confederation that the rate at which a private sector employer pays his or her employees should be left to the discretion of the private sector employers and should not be mandated by legislation or regulation. Most private sector employers in the Bahamas have confirmed that they are currently paying most employees well in excess of the current minimum wage. Many private sector employers also provide for defined contribution pension plans for their employees, in addition to providing medical insurance together with other benefits. These are costs to both the employer and employee. Further, the private sector encourages improvements in education and training of the workforce in skills development and training. And even the Minister of Education has recently gone on record admitting that we need to do an awful lot of that. Employees who seek to earn higher wages should take initiatives to improve themselves by developing their skills and talents in order to improve or increase their level of productivity and output. Employers will pay wages that are commensurate with the level of skills, academic, and vocational qualifications and level of productivity of their employees. As the National Employer Organization in Bahamas, we are committed to assisting with the training and development of individuals through an extensive curriculum in skills development and training, as well as academic, tertiary, level-ed training through the Chamber Institute. We encourage persons seeking to develop new skills or maintain and enhance existing skills to enroll in the Chamber Institute training courses. As an add-on to that, we have now, and we own it, our own very extensive library of online training courses that can be easily purchased and used here by your employees and reduce a lot of your cost of training. It's something we can help with. Finally, the government of the Bahamas must evaluate the strategies employed in improving the educational performance of high school students, many of whom are graduating without the requisite literacy and numeracy skills, which leaves such persons either unemployable or only qualifying for unskilled low-level jobs. It is evident that existing strategies are failing. Therefore, new strategies with results-oriented evaluation criteria must be developed and deployed to ensure that the education system in the Bahamas is constantly upgraded. Boy, I'm bad about that, aren't I? It is evident that existing strategies are failing. Therefore, new strategies with results-oriented evaluation criteria must be developed and deployed to ensure the education system in the Bahamas is constantly upgraded. I can tell you that with talks, and he addressed our Rotary Club, that the Minister of Education is actually making changes. And so, somebody was determined to find me. The end goal must be that no child gets left behind, and curricula are developed to identify and enhance the strengths of students in the school system, along with developing educators and counselors that are able to guide students into the path of pursuit of careers and tertiary studies. It should be noted that a recent $1 million study funded by the IDB involving experts and the Department of Statistics did a study last year on the poverty level in the Bahamas. It was a very serious study done. It was done by people who have done these studies elsewhere in the world. And it was determined that the poverty level was just under $12 per day per person, or $84 a week. So claims that someone cannot live on the current minimum wage is not necessarily true. But what is relevant is how many children they have in order to feed. And so it's all relative. So we believe that a minimum wage of $204 is reasonable and understandable. And we also believe that we're going to be able to reach a reasonable compromise in the next 2 to 3 weeks. One thing else I'd like to note while I'm here, there is a meeting of the Ministers of Labor from the Caribbean in Nassau on March 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And Mr. DeCola, the Director General of the International Labor Organization, will be in attendance. And we will be discussing the minimum wage and immigration and work permits issues and getting his thoughts on these and other issues that may arise. So I would encourage you, if you have any issues you might like to discuss with the head of the ILO, that please let us know. We'll be glad to raise them for you. So So I thank you for having me. I thank you for lunch.